Friday's disaster in Japan raises the question, could an earthquake of that magnitude happen in California, a state with substantial fault lines running throughout it? Dr. Marcia McNutt, director of the U.S. Geological Survey, rejoins us, along with James Garrity, seismologist and Lamont Associate Research Professor at Columbia University. Great to have both of you back with us. And Marcia, let's begin with you. This is a very real scenario playing out in Japan. What is the likelihood we will see it play out here on U.S. shores?
Well, I think that every time an event like this happens, it's a wake-up call for us here in America that we need to be prepared. Now, the exact scenario that we saw happen here in Japan could happen actually in the Pacific Northwest, because we know it did happen. Brian Atwater, who's a specialist at the U.S. Geological Survey, has looked back into the geologic record and seen evidence that on the 26th of January at 9 p.m. in the year 1700, there was an earthquake that generated a tsunami in the Cascadia subduction zone offshore Oregon that generated a tsunami that was actually historically recorded in Japan. And it was the same magnitude as this event. It happened then, it could happen again.
James, this was almost 300 years ago that this event took place. We're told that the earthquake in Japan is a once-in-100-year type of event. So what's the time frame that we may be able to see something like this unfold in the United States?
So the time frame of these things can be very hard to predict because they do vary. The geologic record clearly shows that they vary over time, and so putting a precise number on it is very difficult. But you can look at the relative rates of the motion across these kinds of large faults and try to make an estimate of how much time it will take to accumulate the kind of stress that's going to produce a big earthquake like this.
And what do we see?
It's in the Pacific Northwest, it's certainly a longer time window for the repeating of these kinds of events than it is in Japan. It's probably more on the order of 300 to 500 years.
Dr. McNutt, despite the fact that the science shows us this could be 300 to 500 years down the road, realistically speaking, are the places that could be impacted here in the United States prepared for an event like this?
Well, I think that, like Japan, for decades, we have been using building codes that are up to date. And so, like Japan, I think happily we can say that modern building codes should withstand strong shaking and strong earthquakes. But sadly, I think what this event in Japan has shown us is that something like a wall of water that is 6 feet high, running 6 miles inland or even higher, is something that we are equally unprepared for. And that many of the same kinds of preparedness that we're talking about in terms of hardening our communities to floods and to sea level rise might be the very same things we should think about accelerating in terms of preparing ourselves for tsunamis.
Dr. Garrity, what areas of the United States are most susceptible to this?
So, I mean, the most obvious place is the Pacific Northwest, the coast of Washington and Oregon. And I think one of the real interesting lessons for me that I think is starting to come out of this earthquake in Japan is that the education of the local citizens that these kinds of events happen and how to behave when you feel strong shaking. We don't, the fault in the Pacific Northwest is a little bit different in that we don't generate even smaller events as often as they do in Japan. And so I think the population there, it's a really important public education effort that needs to be made to make sure the population there knows how to respond when these kinds of events occurs. Because it sounds like there was significant saving of lives, believe it or not, in many parts of the most devastated region because people got into high buildings, were able to get out of the way of the water.
That's such a good point. Thank you so much for both of you to joining us today. We sincerely appreciate your time.